Once I had gone to Narrated, a tiny little village hidden somewhere in the Sahyadri mountains. I had worked there and planned to stay just for a day, but I had to extend my stay and needed a place where I could spend the night. Now, Narrated is a very small village. It has no hotels and it has no motels. By 7 in the evening, everyone is back in their homes and there is not a soul on the roads. The entire place is deserted. I was wondering what to do when luckily I met Vishwas Rao, the tea shop owner. He suggested that I stay at the Diwan Khana. The Diwan Khana? Where is that? I asked him and he told me. It wasn't very far and I started walking to what he had referred to as the Diwan Khana. It was a huge mansion, too large compared to tiny little Narrated. In fact, it was so huge that all the inhabitants of the village could easily be accommodated in it. But inside, there was no one. Let me tell you something. I know everyone says this about themselves, but it's true about me. I don't get scared easily. So even in the darkness, I started looking for a nice little corner where I could make myself comfortable for the night. In one of the inner rooms, I found an old tattered mattress, and I thought it was good enough for me. After all, it was just a matter of one night. So I used my briefcase as a pillow, and I made myself comfortable. I must have slowly dozed off when suddenly, tuck, 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 tuck. I got up with a start. I was sure I had heard something. And no, it was not my dreams. Tuck, 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 tuck. There it was again. Like I said before, I don't get scared easily. I wanted to get to the bottom of this strange knocking sound, so I got up and looked around. When I reached the large dining room, I heard it again. Tuck, 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 tuck. The sound came from the upper floor, so I quickly took the stairs and reached the first floor. The moonlight seeped through the open windows and helped me find my way. There was still no sign of the person who was making the sounds. Finally, I got tired and went back to the mattress. I decided to investigate further the next day and closed my eyes. I had a strange dream that night, filled with noises and music.
It's a bhoot, it's a bhoot. Let me know the truth. It's a bhoot, it's a bhoot. Let me know the truth. The tuck-tuck sound is filling my ears, disturbs my sleep and spreads my fears. The tuck-tuck sound is filling my ears, disturbs my sleep and spreads my fears. The tuck-tuck sound is everywhere I go. It comes from above, it comes from below.
It's a bhoot, it's a bhoot.
Tuck, tuck.
Let me know the truth.
The tuck-tuck sound haunts my sleep, boggles my mind with fears that are deep.
The tuck-tuck sound haunts my sleep, bothers my mind with fears that are deep. In my mind, the sound is stuck everywhere. Tuck, tuck, tuck.
Oh, in my mind the sound is stuck everywhere. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Tuck, 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 tuck.
The next morning, I was in a great hurry. I had to finish my work and I forgot all about the tuck, 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 tuck. I was busy with work until the evening, and after having finally finished it, I was relieved. Now I could go back to my own house, and I didn't have to stay in that dusty old divan khana. I went to the bus stand and waited for my bus. Then suddenly, I remembered. Tuck, tuck. I felt uncomfortable. I couldn't go back home unless I solved the mystery of the sound. Where did it come from? Was it a ghost? Slowly I started walking back to the divan khana. By the time I reached the mansion, it was pitch dark. I went right up to the room where I had spent the earlier night and began wondering if I had done the right thing by coming back. What if it really was a ghost? Then suddenly, I heard it again. Tuck, 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 tuck. I rushed out of the room and went upstairs. But now it seemed that the sound was coming from the ground floor. So I rushed down the stairs and darted from one room to another. I had to find the source of the sound. I was now sure that it must be a ghost. And it seemed to be playing hide and seek with me. If I went into the kitchen, it would move into the hall. If I ran into the hall, the ghost would flit into the kitchen. I spent hours chasing after the ghost, and finally, I was tired. I walked slowly to the porch and sat down on the steps under the bright moonlit sky. In the glimmering white light, the entire landscape looked spectacular. Soft breeze swayed the leaves gently, and I was breathing in the beauty that nature exhibited before my tired eyes. The sound started again. My first reaction was to dart in and restart the chase. But then I changed my mind. I decided to let the ghost do the chasing. So I slumped back on the steps. Tuck, 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 tuck. It soon became clear to me that the ghost was not the least bit interested in me. It walked around the house completely oblivious of my presence. It just went from one room to another, and from there to yet another. Never did it come out towards the porch. I was wondering what it wanted. Maybe it just wanted to be left alone. Maybe it was looking for someone. I did not realize when I closed my eyes and went off to sleep, right there on the steps of the porch. The early morning chill woke me up with a start. The first sun rays barely hit the treetops, and I realized that if I rushed, I would be able to catch the first bus out of Narrated. There was no point in chasing the ghost, as it was evident that it wanted to be left alone. At the bus stop, I met Vishwas Rao. He was busy making tea, as numerous passengers would soon swarm the place, and they would all want a hot cup of tea. I went up to him and ordered a cup of tea. He smiled and inquired if my stay at the mansion was comfortable. I smiled meekly. What could I say about the sounds that didn't allow me to sleep for 2 nights? But Vishwas Rao seemed to have understood. "So the sound didn't let you sleep, did it?" he asked me knowingly. I just mumbled. Vishwas Rao laughed heartily and didn't say anything. Finally, unable to control myself, I had to ask, "So whose ghost is it?" "Ghost? What ghost?" Vishwas Rao seemed genuinely surprised as he poured the milk into another greasy vessel. It was now my turn to be surprised. Well, the sounds? Tuck, 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 tuck. Oh, those! That's no ghost, sir. That's just sounds. Just sounds? What do you mean by that? I was beginning to lose my patience now. Then Vishwas Rao told me about the Diwan Sahib, the old nobleman who had lived in the mansion. This was the story he told. Long ago, the Diwan Sahib used to live in the mansion all by himself. He was very old. No one was as old as him. Some even said he was 250 years old. Although he was old, he could do all his work by himself. He didn't need any help, and that's why he lived alone in this huge mansion. But he needed support. So he held a bamboo stick in his hand as he walked. It was his walking stick. When he walked, his soft old feet didn't make any sound. Only his stick did. Tuck, 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 tuck. All day he would walk around the house going about his work. Tuck, 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 tuck. He walked like that for years and years. Close to 250 years. Tuck, 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 tuck. The Diwan Sahib must have walked miles and miles in the mansion. Every step of his was accompanied by the sound of his stick. Imagine how many times he must have made that sound. Where did all the sounds go? The sounds had all got entrapped in the huge mansion. Billions and billions of tuck-tucks. Some may have leaked out through the windows. Some may have trickled out through the doors. And some may have escaped through the balconies. But there were still many left. Thousands and thousands still trapped inside the mansion. And slowly over the next few years, they too would escape, one by one, or in groups. All the tuk-tuks would slowly disappear and get lost in the forest outside. Then from there, drafts of wind would take them to the Nanikhet village. And then further away, who knows, maybe as far as Mumbai and Delhi. And only when all the sounds go will the Diwan Khana be absolutely silent. No more tuck-tuck, 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 tuck. As you know, Sahab, for every step in life that you take, there is a tuck. And the echo of each step, each tuck, remains longer than you can imagine. And that was where Vishwas Rao's story ended. After listening to his tale, I felt at peace. At last I had solved the mystery and could go home.
It's a bhoot, it's a bhoot. Let me know the truth. It's a bhoot, it's a bhoot. Let me know the truth. The tuck-tuck sound is filling my ears, disturbs my sleep and spreads my fears. The tuck-tuck sound is filling my ears, disturbs my sleep and spreads my fears. The tuck-tuck sound is everywhere I go. It comes from above, it comes from below. Tuck-tuck,
It's a bhoot, it's a bhoot.
tuck-tuck.
Let me know the truth.
The tuk-tuk sound haunts my sleep, boggles my mind with fears that are deep.
The tuk-tuk sound haunts my sleep, bothers my mind with fears that are deep in my mind. The sound is stuck everywhere. Tuk-tuk-tuk.
Oh, in my mind the sound is stuck everywhere. Tuk-tuk-tuk.
Ananda the ox was quite simply enormous. With muscles rippling under his frame and his huge curved horns, he was a fearsome sight in his village in Benares. Yet, the children didn't think twice before cuddling up to his massive head or stroking his broad back. One look at Ananda's gentle eyes, and you knew he wouldn't hurt a fly.
Ananda, 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 Ananda.
Billa, his owner, knew that too. He would sit in the sun, stretching his thin arms above his head, observing Ananda with pride. Who would have thought that such a tiny calf would become such a splendid creature? Yet, as the days went by, Ananda began to feel restless. Billa is so good to me, he thought. He has hardly any money, but he looks after me so well. What can I do to repay him? It took him some time to hit upon the perfect plan. And though it was quite late, he rushed over to Billa's hut and poked his gigantic head through the door. "Are you feeling all right?" demanded Billa anxiously. "Is there a problem?" "I want to help you," said Ananda, coming straight to the point. "And I only have my strength to offer. But I have a plan. You must go to town tomorrow, find a rich merchant, and bet him 1,000 silver pieces that your ox can pull 100 cartloads of boulders, gravel, and stones, all at once." Billa frowned. "Are you crazy? That's impossible. 100 carts full of stones and rocks? Do you want everyone to laugh at me?" "Don't you trust me?" asked Ananda sharply. "Have I ever let you down in all these years?" Billa had to admit that his faithful ox had never let him down. "Well then," said Ananda calmly, "just do as I say." The next morning, Billa set off to town, quite unsure about his task. At the market, he dove into a familiar shop and looked around. A well-dressed merchant sat in a corner, talking loudly and waving his hands. The rings on his fingers sparkled. Well, here was a rich merchant, all right, Billa thought. He took a few deep breaths and approached the man. "May I join you?" Billa asked. The merchant nodded his head vaguely, so Billa sat down and waited. Then Billa said, "I have a very strong ox." The merchant paused. So? So my ox is the strongest in this land. He's so strong that he can pull 100 carts loaded with boulders, gravel, and stone. The merchant snorted. "That's impossible." "Why don't we lay a wager?" went on Billa bravely. "What about 1,000 silver pieces?" The merchant looked surprised. "All right," he said. "Bring your ox to the town square tomorrow morning. But remember," and he wagged a threatening finger, "if he can't do as you say, you have to give me 1,000 silver pieces." Billa nodded and walked as fast as he could back to his village. Once there, he told Ananda that the deal was fixed, and the ox sighed with satisfaction. Now, at last, he could repay his master. And so, while Billa spent the night worrying about the task that awaited his ox, Ananda dreamt of a wealthy Billa living in a magnificent house, surrounded by luxuries. The next morning, Billa could hardly swallow his frugal breakfast. He sat frowning at the doorway of his hut. When Ananda lumbered over to him, Billa squirmed away. The ox regarded his master with patient eyes. "Don't worry," he said. "Just trust me." Billa did not know whether to feel worried or annoyed. He sighed and got to his feet, preparing himself for the long walk to town. As they approached the town square, they heard the noise. Cheering, clapping, singing and shouting. Word had travelled quickly about Ananda, and the entire town had come to witness Ananda's strength. Billa took one look at the eager crowd and at the 100 loaded carts and at the merchant. His heart sank. "I'm going to be a laughing stock," he fretted. "Ananda will never be able to pull these heavy carts. Oh, why did I agree to this foolish plan?" As the yoke was set on Ananda's shoulders and fastened to the cart ropes, Billa's anger rose. "Serves me right," he muttered furiously, "for having listened to the words of a beast." Striding forward, he lifted his whip and brought it crashing down on Ananda's hide. "You stupid creature," he cried. "Go on, pull those carts." Ananda's eyes flew open in shock and pain. Turning his massive head around, he gave Billa a long, measured look. Then, he dug his hooves firmly into the ground. Standing still as a boulder, he stared ahead, while shouts, pleas, and cries rang out on all sides. It was as if he were nailed to the spot. The carts remained where they were, and the crowd's disappointed cries grew louder and louder. A desperate Billa threw himself at the merchant's feet, begging for mercy. "You really have a strong ox, don't you?" smirked the merchant. "Oh yes, the strongest in the land." He laughed till his chins trembled and then said, "Go home, you foolish fellow, and don't make such silly deals again." Miserable and frustrated, Billa pushed through the mocking crowd and raced home. Never would he show his face in town again. And, at that moment, he didn't care if he never saw Ananda again either. That night, a huge head poked through his door. Billa sprang to his feet. Get away from here, he shouted. You wretch! You made me agree to your foolish plan, and now everyone is laughing at me. Why did you hit me and call me names? Demanded Ananda. Have I ever let you down before? Was this my reward for wanting to make you rich and happy? Billa wiped the tears of shame from his eyes and suddenly looked sheepish. You're right, he said sadly. I shouldn't have treated you like that. You didn't let me down. I let you down. He hugged Ananda's head. Will you ever forgive me, my friend? I am so sorry. If you are truly sorry, then do as I say, rumbled the ox. Billa listened closely to Ananda. Thereafter, matters were settled in no time at all. Of course, this involved another trip to town and another unpleasant meeting with the merchant. But Billa merely gritted his teeth and got on with it. A new deal was struck for 3,000 silver pieces this time, and fresh arrangements were made. And so, as the sun rose on a new day, Billa and Ananda made their way back to the town square, where a noisy crowd and 100 laden carts awaited them. There's that crazy man again with his foolish ox. But as the yoke and the ropes were attached to Ananda, Billa patted his head. My friend, this is your time, he whispered. Pull the carts and let these people see your strength. The great ox nodded and, using every ounce of strength in him, pulled. The wheels on the long row of carts jerked out of the earth and began to spin till they were rolling around the square in a smooth, orderly line. The crowd gasped at the magnificent sight and cheered wildly. From that day on, the streets of that town in Benares rang with a special song.
When Ananda was a little calf with legs that swayed and shook, none that saw him would have given more than a passing look. But time went on and he grew and grew to an amazing size. He was huge and strong and brave and so exceptionally wise. When Ananda was a little calf with legs that swayed and shook, none that saw him would have given more than a passing look. He pulled 100 cartloads of gravel, stone and rock, moving just as if he were out on his morning walk. Now Billa's a very rich man, thanks to this noble one, and word will pass forevermore on what this ox has done.
Chanana, 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 chanana. Chanana, nanana, chana, chana, chanana.